African perspective.
Joining us right here on Channel Africa. It's always incredible to have all these conversations that we have together, but at the core of it all, making sure that we focus on who we are as African people, making it Pan-African, making it for us, by us, and information that helps make us, move forward, helps us grow, help us prosper all together as Africa, and of course Africans all around the world as well. Thank you for joining us right here on the show, and thank you to the morning team. That's Africa Rise and Shine with Asanda Beta and Peter Ndoro. It's now 7 minutes past 9 Central Africa time, and you're tuned in to On the Move with myself, Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama, and we'll be with you for the next 3 hours, all the way to 12 p.m. Central Africa time, and we'll definitely be giving you news, views, and entertainment from the African perspective.
3 hours, sure.
3 hours.
To go.
No, it's going to be quick. I always say that radio time runs on Gautrain time. Gautrain is a speed train here in Johannesburg, South Africa. It moves so quickly, and sometimes it feels like a radio show. 3 hours can move on like that. So definitely the 3 hours is going to be good, especially because we're having great conversations with you as well.
I thought you were going to say especially because I'm hanging out with you.
Benji, it's always special because I'm hanging out with you. I hang out with you from Monday to Friday. So every day is a special day.
Never feels like a burden. Do you know that?
Never. In the first hour of the show, we speak to someone we've had on the show for quite some time. He is a researcher at the African Population and Health Research Center in Kenya, Dr. Anthony Ajayi, and he's going to be a part of a very powerful webinar that's titled Ending Mistreatment and Building Dignity for Adolescents During Childbirth. I think this is a very important conversation. Teenage pregnancy is a huge conversation, and it is a regular occurrence all across the African continent. But the conversations we usually have about teenage pregnancy, how can we stop them? Why are young girls be getting pregnant? Who's impregnating them? Yes, all those conversations are equally important. But what about their health, but also their dignity within the healthcare sector? We're taking a look at that today, where nearly 1 in 3 adolescent mothers experience some form of mistreatment during childbirth, ranging from verbal abuse, neglect, denied privacy, and many, many more. Dr. Anthony Ajayi will be speaking to us in the first hour to unpack this really important conversation. And then we head on into the cubicle. That's our workplace feature here on The Move. And CVs are getting constantly polished. Whether you want to call them a CV, what do they call them in other countries? A CV is called
a resume.
A resume, yes. So whether you call it a CV or a resume, these days people are using technology, AI, to make it look so nice and polished. But is all the information in there true, and is it verifiable? That's the conversation we're having in our cubicle today. We'll be speaking to Tando Ding, who is an HR specialist, but we'll also be joined by the founder and CEO of a brand new app called Spun, which is a verification-led employment platform, and his name is Afika Non. So he'll also be unpacking this conversation with us in the second hour. Of course, our Money Matters feature follows. It is Tuesday after all. We're speaking personal finance, and today we're speaking about the family dynamic of finance, but also the family dynamic of teaching children about finances from their different age range all the way to birth until they get old enough. How are you teaching children about finance in your personal space? And over and above that, are you helping them recognize and navigate financial risks in a positive and healthy way? We're having this conversation with Ramukebe Tamache, Just Money spokesperson, in today's final hour.
Hey man, you can join us in different ways. Remember, our streaming is there for you to really engage with us. You can see us live in studio as we engage on this 3-hour journey of On The Move. So yeah, tune into our live stream via our Facebook page, Channel Africa Africa, and also our Instagram, which uses the handle at Channel Africa 1. And also, we also on YouTube. So there are many ways that you can stream us live. When you get in there, let us know where you're listening to Channel Africa from, wherever you are on the African continent. Let's have a continental party there as we celebrate you, the city you're from, or whatever country that you're listening to Channel Africa on. Well, let's get going. You are listening to On The Move.
Annie Kalonji sur Channel.
Johannesburg Stock Exchange. It's where trade meets transformation. We are building Africa's future through AFC, FTA, the EU's global gateway, and the power of small businesses. It's an opportunity to spark collaboration and unlock Africa's investment. Presented by the European Entrepreneurs, the Pan-African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Shared Value Africa. This is a summit not to be missed. Register now at euafricasmesummit.eu. Get set and be ready to go. On the Move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama.
You know, when we speak a lot, most of the time when we speak about teenage pregnancy, the conversations around it are filled with blame, are filled with guilt, are filled with misunderstanding of how these occurrences still happen. Teenage pregnancy is a major public health issue on the African continent. And in fact, the adolescent birth rate in sub-Saharan Africa is still the highest globally at 103 births per 1,000 women aged 15 to 19 years old. And it also has the highest rate of teenage pregnancy with a prevalence of 19.3% for those under the age of 19. So, of course, this is a major issue. But with all the conversations that are equally important that we have around teenage pregnancy, we often overlook not just the health, but the safety and dignity of adolescent girls who are pregnant here on the African continent. We're speaking today to Dr. Anthony Ajayi, leading researcher at the African Population and Health Research Center in Kenya, who is part of a powerful group of voices featured in an upcoming webinar that's titled Ending Mistreatment and Building Dignity for Adolescents During Childbirth. We'll be talking to him about how health systems can do better, how communities can support change, and what it means to truly uphold dignity in maternal care. Dr. Ajayi, it's always a pleasure to speak to you. This conversation is extremely important because, as I said, teenage pregnancy is a huge healthcare burden on the African continent, but we can't overlook that teenagers on the continent are getting pregnant. This is quite prevalent. Yet our moral, and I say this quote unquote, our moral compass, particularly in the healthcare system, is not really allowing the dignity and the fair treatment of adolescent girls within the healthcare system.
Thank you very much for having me. I think you summarized it pretty well. There is increasing evidence of abuse during childbirth. But even beyond that, when adolescents seek post-abortion care, or when they seek care for sexual gender-based violence, again, studies have increasingly shown that they are subjected to abuse in a clinic. And what do I mean by abuse? There are several forms of mistreatment that are being reported by these adolescents that have experiences with healthcare. They're reporting physical abuse, which include being gagged, slapped, beaten, verbal humiliation, neglect, discrimination, especially based on their age, discrimination because, of course, they also do not have a partner, they are unmarried, lack of privacy, denial of companionship, failure to just meet the regular professional standard. They are being denied painkillers, for example,
Wow.
When they are carrying out procedures that are really, really painful, especially vacuum aspiration. So all of these are things that I think we need to really talk about because they should not be happening in clinic, and they are driven by, just as you put it, moral values or culture.
Yeah.
Immediately you see an adolescent, you just become judgmental that she should not be having sex. So and that's not sort of cascade to the way the adolescence is treated in the clinic. So it's really a shame, really. In the study we did, we found that a third of adolescents reported one form of abuse or the other. And it also include detainment for their inability to pay for the services they receive as well. So they either detain their baby or they detain both of them in the clinic, and that's really dehumanizing in a way. And solely because of their young age, because of our moral judgments around what is normal, what is acceptable culturally. Now, all of these have implications, as you know.
Yeah.
It has implications because it erodes trust in the health system and it deters future health-seeking behavior. Many of these young people will not return to the clinic when they really need care.
As you said, all these examples and things that, these young girls are experiencing is incredibly dehumanizing. And it seems like there is a huge need, especially on the African continent, to separate healthcare as a profession and an individual's traditional or cultural moral compass.
Yes. And that's why it's important that governments need to continuously train health providers. In many health providers are not necessarily trained about adolescent responsive care or respectful care for adolescents. So for them, in fact, from some of the qualitative studies we conducted, when a health provider sees a pregnant 14-year-old or a pregnant 13-year-old, the immediate reaction is to call other health providers to come and see. And then you see, for the adolescent's perspective, they do not want to go to clinic because they are ashamed, right?
Yeah.
And then when they manage to have the courage to go, you call other health providers, other older people to come and then circle around this young girl. It makes it so uncomfortable for her. And that's where the mistreatment will start. And then they begin to make statements that are judgmental and discriminatory to these adolescents. So it reinforces the need for training, for continuous training on adolescents' friendly care or respectful care. But more importantly, older women are also experiencing this. It's not only adolescents that are experiencing this. If you are poor, if you are really, really poor from poor background, you are also likely to experience mistreatment and abuse from providers. It just seemed to me that issues of dignity, issues of respectful care are only reserved for middle-class rich women because they also know that they know their rights and they probably would sue them, or so they tend to treat those ones better. But for poor women, for young adolescents, they don't get the quality care that they deserve, the dignified care that they need. And of course, when we speak to providers about this issue, they blame it on, of course, lack of training when it comes to respectful care, but also they also blame it on burnouts. They are overwhelmed. They see so many patients. So their patients is always wearing thin when people are not complying with their instruction, and that ends the physical violence or the verbal abuse that they meted out to these women.
Right, let's take a break, Dr. Ajay. This is such an important conversation. I also want us to speak a little bit about this upcoming webinar. But what needs to be fixed within our healthcare systems on the African continent? Of course, there are other things that need to be fixed, first of all, to try and curb, teenage and adolescent pregnancy on the continent. But moreover, when those teenagers and adolescents are already pregnant, they do need the dignity of proper healthcare as everyone else does. So stay on the line with us. It's 20 minutes past 9 Central Africa time. We'll continue this conversation after the break.
Panga sugar ya Irovo yomwe ndi nthambi ya Irovo Sugar Group Limited kuti isiye kutumiza sugar kumaiko akunja. Malingana ndi nduna ya zamalonda Vitumbuko Mhumba, izi zithandiza kuti sugar yemwe yakusowa pamsika azipezeka. Ndiye pano ndili ndi George Muhangu amene ali mu mzinda wa Blantyre mu dziko la Malawi. Chimene chikupangitsa kuti sugar azisowa ndi chani?
Chomwe chikupangitsa kuti sugar azisowa ndichonena kuti panopo ili ngati off season ya makampani a Irovo Sugar Malawi kunena kuti sakutha kupanga shugayi okwanira chifukwa akukolora. Ndiye akamaliza kukolora pameneno atayambeno somano kugaya shugayi kuti azipezeka. Chinanso ndichonena kuti ma distributors amene akumakagula sugar kaya ndi ku Irovo kaya ndi kusalima sugar akumagulisa kumaiko akunja ngati Zambia, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Mozambique.
Zochitika ndi Madaphiri lolemba mpaka lachisanu pa nthawi ya 7 koloko kufikira 8 koloko madzulo pa Channel Africa.
June is Youth Month in South Africa. Celebrate Africa's young voices with us. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move.
Hey, you are listening to Channel Africa, and we are having a very important conversation, and that's what we like doing, really investigating what's happening in our various African societies. And this is an important conversation that we're having with one of our favorite African researchers, Dr. Anthony Ajayi, a leading researcher at the African Population and Health Research Center in Kenya. And he's going to be part of a very important webinar titled Ending Mistreatment and Building Dignity for Adolescents During Childbirth. And you've really given us a sense of mistreatment and a sense of victimization really in what's happening with these pregnant adolescent young girls. Let's talk a little bit about how the health system responds to that, because it seems like it's become mundane. It seems like it's become very commonplace for it to be a norm. And doctor, we're not doing much in our systems, our health systems to be more specific, to ensure that we change the tide.
One of the reasons why it's important to raise awareness on this issue. It's currently not a major priority for the health system in general, even for the departments of health or the ministries of health on the continent. And it should be a priority because what is healthcare if it's not offered with dignity, really? So for me, I think it should be an important agenda or priority for the ministry, for the health system itself, but also for the community. Because young people can challenge this mistreatment themselves if they are aware of their rights, if they know that they, I'm sure they know that it's wrong, that the way they are treated is wrong, really. But if they know how to go about seeking redress, would also really help. Because young people themselves should be able to demand for dignified care. They should be able to have channels to report mistreatment and seek redress. And that's really important. That at the center, the African Population and Health Research Center, a colleague of mine is currently testing an intervention to improve the quality of care for adolescents in one of the counties in Kenya. And a key component of that intervention is to train young people to understand their right to quality care, to respectful care, to understand that neglect, abuse, are unacceptable in the health facility. And that's an important first step. And this intervention is also being co-developed with health providers, with the leadership structure in health facilities in that county, but also with leaders, political leaders, community leaders, and adolescents themselves. So I think that's one model that we are testing that could be one way to go in terms of addressing this. But more importantly, issues of training and retaining of health workers is really paramount to addressing this. As you know, many of them were not trained about this topic, in the medical schools. So they need to be able to get these trainings one way or the other. And there are some civil society organizations that that have expertise in providing this training. And I think, they probably need us to be supported to do this. Healthcare needs to be offered in a respectful and dignified manner. Now, let's also say that there are additional components of these issues of mistreatment that are also beyond the health provider, because I don't want this to sound as though we are blaming health providers. When we talk about mistreatment, it also extends to lack of availability of essential components, say like painkiller. Even as a health provider, you know that this procedure is painful, there needs to be anesthesia, but if you don't have in your public health facility, you're unable to do that. And some care, like post-abortion care, are really life savings. They need to be offered. So what happens, what do you do as a provider if you work in a facility that do not have some of these supplies? It makes your work also difficult. So those are also other aspects of it. Of course, there are cases where providers will intentionally deny a young person to punish them for what they perceive as their promiscuous ways, right? But there are also instances where those supplies are unavailable, and governments also need to ensure that medical supplies are available to be able to offer quality and dignified care to young people and to women in general. Also, issues of being overburdened, being burnout and things like that significantly stress out workers. So there are shortage of health providers on the continent, really. Even though we export our providers to UK, to the US, we have shortage ourselves. We need to be able to address all of these such that providers are not overwhelmed and they're also not lashing out at patients, because that's irrespective of whatever training you provide. If people are overwhelmed, they are seeing maybe 50 patients in a day instead of seeing 20. Their patients may also be wearing thin and things like that. So there are structural issues that are beyond the provider themselves that also need to be put in place to ensure that the working conditions for our providers are conducive to provide this quality care that we all demand and that people deserve, really.
Well, thank you for giving us that very comprehensive response that looks at the multi-dynamics of the causes and also not just pinning it on one dynamic, which are the health professionals within the public and private health systems. Let's talk a little bit as we wrap things up. Your take on the way forward here.
Yeah, so for me, at the center of mistreatment of young people in health facility is the issue of societal norms around acceptable behavior. The society generally would reprimand a young person that get pregnant. There's high societal stigma and discrimination. In fact, we did an article talking about how these young girls are excluded from school. In fact, we saw a memo, I think from Uganda last week, that expelled a student from school for getting pregnant. So this still happens in many of our communities. These young girls are denied their right to education, they are denied their right to quality health care as a punishment for getting pregnant. Now, I'm not advocating for adolescent pregnancy, but it's part of what's happening in our society. And we as society need to understand that these young people are even more vulnerable when they get pregnant. So excluding them might not necessarily be the right approach to addressing the issue of adolescent pregnancy. We should do everything to prevent these pregnancies from happening. But once it happens, we need to make sure that we are not discriminating and excluding them. We need to support them. To get back on their feet and achieve their desire. I think that's at the center of what's happening. The issues of blaming should stop. Once pregnancy has happened, then we need to move on and provide support.
Well, we have to leave it there, Doctor. We always appreciate some of the really on-the-ground work that you do and your very detailed research on some of these very important social issues. Thank you, Dr. Ajayi, for joining us here on Channel Africa.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, that's Dr. Anthony Ajayi, leading researcher at the African Population and Health Research Center in Kenya, speaking about a webinar that's upcoming, which is titled Ending Mistreatment and Building Dignity for Adolescents During Childbirth. That conversation takes us to 9:30 right now. We're right on time to get our latest sports update.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Benjamin. Good morning, guys. Let me start off with the basketball. Egypt's Al Ittihad and Libya's Al Ahly Tripoli are the first two teams to secure the ticket to the semi-finals of the playoffs of Basketball Africa League, BAL 2025. Al Ahly had to beat Cape Verde's Creole Star to advance to the semi-finals, while Al Ittihad overcame Morocco's FUS Rabat in Pretoria, South Africa, where the playoffs action is unfolding. The BAL quarterfinals continue tomorrow as APR of Rwanda takes on Rivers Hoopers of Nigeria before US Monastir of Tunisia faces Pedro de Luanda of Angola. The BAL, a partnership between the International Basketball Federation FIBA and the NBA, is a professional league featuring 12 club teams from across Africa that completed its fourth season in June 2024. And double Olympic champion Beatrice Chebet is now salivating for the 5,000-meter world record after a scintillating victory at the Rome Diamond League. Chebet will take part in the sixth leg of the prestigious competition set for the 12th of June in Oslo, Norway. She believes it is only a matter of time before she runs a sub-14. 25-year-old continued her dominant showing in 2025, clocking an eye-catching 14.0369 seconds to win the women's 5,000 meter 3 seconds slower than the current world record by Ethiopian Gudav Tsegai. Meanwhile, Ethiopia's Hailu Fremwein took second place in a personal best of 14 minutes 19.33 seconds as Italian Nadia Batocletti clocked a national record of 14 minutes 23.15 seconds to claim the final podium place. Following her dominant run, Chebet leads the Diamond League standings for the women's 5,000 meter with 24 points, 11 ahead of Batocletti. And now on to athletics. The recent collaboration of the Confederation of African Athletics CAA and Worldwide Scholarship WWS has reached a chapter of rolling out initiatives that will benefit continental athletics and athletes while drawing attention of global stars to participate in African spectacles. WWS founder and CEO Munya Maraire unpacks the 2026 inaugural African Athletics Series, the AAS.
As an organization, we signed a momentous agreement with the Confederation of African Athletics a few weeks ago in Cape Town. And as we track on in our first 100 days of this agreement, one of the initiatives that we're putting together is the African Athletics Series, which is going to be competitions that are run across the continent to level the playing field, to bring the best of the world in sports and in athletics to come and compete in Africa.
Now, golf news. The United States Golf Association, USGA, finalized the 156-man field for the US Open on Monday by granting 3 more full exemptions into the field and adding 5 alternates. Ryan Fox of New Zealand moved into the top 60 of the official world golf ranking, making him exempt into the field for the major championship to be contested this week at Oakmont Country Club. Fox rocketed to number 32 in the world by winning the RBC Canadian Open on Sunday, his second victory in his last 4 starts. Let's end with cricket news. Former Proteas captain Graeme Smith and longtime teammate Hashim Amla were both inducted into the ICC Hall of Fame at a glittering ceremony held at the iconic Abbey Road Studios in London. The two Proteas legends were part of a group of 7 former players to be inducted, with Australia's Matthew Hayden, former New Zealand spinner Daniel Vettori, and ex-India skipper Mahindra Singh Dhoni. Sana Mir and Sarah Taylor were the 2 former women's players in the list, taking the group of ICC Hall of Fame inductees to 122. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move.
Thank you so much for our first sports update on the Move. Let's move on to our latest in business.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Palesa, and good morning. Bloomberg reports that the World Bank has approved a $1.5 billion loan to South Africa to support structural reforms aimed at boosting the country's infrastructure. The loan amount will be used to enhance energy security, increase port and rail volumes, and support the shift to a low-carbon economy. Shaun Bryce-Peace reports that a World Bank media liaison officer refused to share the statement on the loan facility when it was requested by SABC News.
According to a statement from the bank, the loan would address the nation's challenges of low growth and high unemployment by easing constraints in its energy and freight transport sectors. The lender highlighted power generation breakdowns as also curbing growth. The money will go towards Eskom's efforts to bolster the grid for renewable operations and Transnet to support freight transport capacity.
South African telecommunication company Telkom has reported a 62.3% rise in full-year earnings and resumed dividends after a 4-year suspension, declaring also a special dividend of 98 South African cents per share. In 2020, the operator of South Africa's biggest fixed-line network announced the suspension of dividends for the next 3 financial years, starting in 2021. However, after reaching the initial target, the under-pressure operator delayed resuming dividend payments as it faced challenging market conditions. Head of Communication at South Africa's Department of Basic Education, Elijah Mhlanga, told Channel Africa that young people must gear their energies towards entrepreneurship. This is the inaugural policy dialogue on entrepreneurship education kicked off in Boksburg, east of Johannesburg. The high-level dialogue aims to ignite a cross-sector conversation on embedding entrepreneurship education into the basic education system. Mhlanga says with the emergence of artificial intelligence, budding entrepreneurs have to take advantage of the status quo.
This dialogue is very important because we need to now focus as a country on entrepreneurship, not just learners who are going to be employees. We need now to say what is it that we need to do to make sure that we equip our young people for the future world of work.
Oil prices hit multi-week highs buoyed by a weaker US dollar, while investors awaited news from US-China trade talks in London in hopes a deal could boost the global economic outlook and subsequently fuel demand. Brent crude futures settled 57 US cents higher, or 0.9% to $67.4 US a barrel. During the session, the benchmark rose $67.19 a barrel, the highest since the 28th of April. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 559. Botswana 13.23, Kenya 128 shilling 41, and Zambia 24 kwacha 76. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar will cost you 5 real 56, Russia 78 rubles 82, India 85 rupees 66, China 71 18, and in South Africa the dollar will cost you 17 rand 72. $1 is trading at 73 pence to the British pound and 87 to the euro. Gold is trading at $3,306 and platinum $1,216 per ounce. Brent crude oil $67.33 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Tabiso Lehoko.
Time to plug into the heartbeat of the continent. Tune in to Channel Africa, your go-to radio station that broadcasts in 5 different languages.
L'Afrique du Sud célèbre la journée nationale du
Kabla hujaitwa kwa jina la Double K or more of our forests have been destroyed.
Tamo kutuli bwanji ndi Partido Africano da Independência da Guiné.
See, Channel Africa represents every corner of this amazing land. From Lagos to Cape Town, Nairobi to Dakar, we've got you covered with the freshest news, music, and cultures. So, turn up the volume, feel the rhythm. And join the conversation. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa.
I'm not coming to work today. I can't see. No.
Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tepu Kholikweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m., 5 till 6. We put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joel Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia. 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana. 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones. On air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up.
I know this is a lot of people right now. Around this time of the year, this is when people start feeling like, I might actually need a holiday. This is a Problem Child featuring Just J King. Holiday is the name of this particular track. It's 9:43 Central Africa time.
9 to 12 midday, Central African time. On the move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama. With Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tepu Kholikweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m., 5 till 6. We put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joel Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia. 9 till 10, we take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana. 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones. On air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine, 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda, as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tepu Kholikweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joel Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Mariamo Kumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia. 9 till 10, we take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana. 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones. On air,
Bust
online.
down. This is Channel Africa, giving you the African perspective. A really important conversation we just had with Dr. Anthony Ajay, speaking about the mistreatment of pregnant teenagers in our healthcare systems, especially during childbirth. This is from an upcoming webinar titled Ending Mistreatment and Building Dignity for Adolescents During Childbirth. And I think it's an incredible, important conversation to have, because all the other conversations that we have about teenage pregnancy are attached to a lot of shame. And I think it's something that we do generally as Africans, right? We place what we say is our cultural and traditional moral compass above all else, even in the way of human dignity and human rights.
I'll tell you one thing. I'm going to say something very controversial, right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to do it very deliberately. I love being an African man.
Yeah.
Because all these things are never imposed on me. All these moral compass values. Even when I was a teenager, probably you are asked, hey man, do you have a girlfriend? Have you kissed anyone yet? You know, those questions that actually over-sexualize you. And actually there's a demand for you to be sexualized from a very young age as a man, right? Or to have a certain inclination, right? Not necessarily to be sexually active, but, you know, to actually be someone who has an inclination towards your own sexuality. But then with women, whenever they explore that freedom or explore that sense of self, there's almost like a moral compass that comes out from nowhere, and there's an imposition of being, and then it's like, oh, you have to be this kind of a person. And even if you make certain life choices, some of them are mistakes, of course. We're not pushing for teenage pregnancy on the show, but errors happen and teenagers get pregnant, right? But then we put up this compass that we don't actually, for women, but we don't find their male counterparts and say, let's put on the same.
You both have to bear the brunt.
Let's put the same compass of morality on you as well, as much as we put it on teenage girls. So that's where I find a sense of I don't want to use this word, but it is kind of pretentious.
Absolutely. And not just pretentious. We are in systems, right? The healthcare system is a profession. is a profession, and it's so important, as Dr. Jai said, that there's retraining around these professions, because in many spaces that you find yourself on the continent, it's almost like, as a person moving around the world, as a woman in particular moving around the world, it's almost like you have an expectation of being a child to everybody, even in places where you need professional and dignified help and assistance, right? So I'm speaking about literally in any space, whether it's in the healthcare sector. Sometimes, for example, if you go to the bank, you might get there and maybe want to deposit a certain amount of money, and the lady or the man behind is like, "Hey, my child, why do you this? Why do you that? Oh, why are you wearing that? You are my..." So it's almost like a constant state of infancy, even wherever you go, even in spaces where you're supposed to receive professional on the other side to assist you professionally. So I'm saying that you go to a healthcare professional. You are looking for healthcare. You're not there looking for a mother to scold you or a father to scold you or to tell you what is appropriate or inappropriate for a life. You need
You're not
a
going
professional.
to the healthcare system. You're not going to a clinic. You're not going to the hospital to be parented. You're going there to receive professional care. But unfortunately, many women, and especially these adolescent girls that we speak of who are pregnant, are receiving that kind of treatment. And so to the people, those healthcare workers, they think they have a right to scold you. They have a right to, tell you, "No, I'm not going to give you a painkiller. Why were you doing this in the first place?" They have a right to even sometimes verbally or physically abuse you in that place, because they are allowed to have more agency over you, your decisions, your body, than you actually do. Yeah, unfortunately, that's the case. And what do you think about this one? The treatment of pregnant girls in the public and private health system. What's your take on that one? I think also the private and public health systems are very different in how they deal with these issues. Have you seen the differences as well there? +2763 406 9126. You can text us or voice note us there.
Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa, the African perspective. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tebucho Likweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joël Moteba. We go to Eastern Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochi Tika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some Lucifer knowledge. Kalodiscopia. 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana. 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones. On air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tebogo Likweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joël Moteba. We go to Eastern Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochi Tika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia. 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana. 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones. On air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine, 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda, as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tebogo Likweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color.
A beautiful classic by Kajanine there. The one is titled Samborera. It is time for us to move into our second hour of the show. And we've been looking at this first hour conversation around how teenage girls or even adolescents are being really mistreated in the public health system. And the thing about it, I think women have to bear the brunt of many expectations that are not just fed by maybe Afrocentric like religious or personal or even social belief systems, but I think it's also a dynamic that also is in society where women have certain values that are imposed on them, even values that women themselves don't believe in, and it happens from a very young age. And the problem with this is that we don't actually impose those particular value systems of, well, why were you pregnant so young? Oh, you don't go to the young man who actually impregnated that young girl and say, why did you impregnate that particular child? And sometimes it's not a young boy.
In fact, most of the times it's not even a young
Well, I don't know the
person.
statistics.
Yeah.
But maybe we should verify those statistics and say.
I remember we had a conversation about it
Yeah.
a while back, but
let's
we'll
just be
verify.
more accurate and we'll verify that. But at times it's actually an elder who's actually made that adolescent child pregnant. Let's not forget to talk about the prevalence of child marriages here on the African continent. So it's very important for us to actually think and reframe ourselves, because, you know, you can say it's a system that's within the healthcare sector, but it's not just a system, Bali. I think it's also people. People run systems. People manage these systems.
100%.
So I think the human dynamic is such an important concept.
And I think what the worst part about it is you take an oath as a healthcare provider to help people, but what you're doing could actually risk the lives of these young girls who you mistreat in these systems. Because if young girls who are pregnant, these teenagers or adolescents who are pregnant, they come to the healthcare system and many of them already know they can expect ill treatment. And so many don't go to the health system. Remember, we're not even speaking about just those who want to carry their children to term. Those, for example, who want to get abortions. So many young girls die through backdoor illegal abortions, even in countries like South Africa, where free abortions can take place in public hospitals. But they don't go there because they know that if I go there, I'm going to be scolded, I'm going to be verbally abused, I might even be turned back. Just for fun's sakes, even if there is someone who can help me, I'm kept in lines for hours and verbally abused in those lines. So let me try something backdoor, or maybe I'll find a little bit of money somewhere, and then I could lose my life. Young girls or young people might not go and get their regular pregnancy checkups. Those who want to carry to term might not go to the clinic to get their regular checkups, putting their lives and their children's lives at risk. That could lead to death simply because you are unable to put your own moral, inclinations aside from your profession as a healthcare provider.
Yeah, but also there's also systematic issues like lack of resources, lack of enough staff in the healthcare system. What's your thought on that one? Remember, you can get in touch with us here on Channel Africa on our WhatsApp number. Remember, that's a text and voice note format that you can send us. That's +27634691268. It's 1000 hours Central African time. Let's get the latest news right here on Channel Africa.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Top stories: the Saba 30 unclaimed bodies retrieved from underground in Stilfontein in South Africa to be buried today, and a huge drug bust in Mexico. Good morning, I'm Jolani Tulongwebe. 30 unclaimed bodies which were retrieved from a disused mine in Stilfontein in South Africa's northwest province last year are being buried as paupers in Klerksdorp today. It's believed some swabs from the bodies will be stored for DNA tests for families that might claim them later. The bodies were retrieved during the government-led operation to rescue illegal miners from underground at Shaft 11 in Stilfontein. 20 more bodies were buried at the end of the month. Still in South Africa, the High Court in Johannesburg will hear arguments today against Operation Dudula, an organisation accused of xenophobic and racist activities. The case filed by Kopanang Africa against xenophobia and others argues that Operation Dudula participated in illegal conduct against foreign nationals. Operation Dudula, the campaign launched in 2021, intends to combat crime and the influx of illegal immigrants into the country, among other things. The applicants, represented by the Socio-Economic Rights Institute, or SERI, are seeking an order prohibiting Operation Dudula's conduct. Attorney at SERI, Asenati Tugela.
It is to enforce the powers under Section 41 of the Immigration Act, which simply states that only an immigration officer can go around demanding that people produce their documents to prove their legality in the country. But the second and the most important is to interdict and restrain Operation Dudula from the harassment and the xenophobic attacks that they have instituted against foreign nationals, which are denying people from education, denying people from accessing health, denying people basically from enjoying the human rights that are guaranteed by the Constitution.
Dozens of activists have staged a protest outside a mortuary in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, following the death of a 31-year-old man in police custody. Albert Omondi Ojwang's death has sparked outrage in Kenya. He was arrested following a complaint by the deputy police chief, who accused him of tarnishing his name on social media. In an initial statement, police said that Ojwang sustained head injuries after hitting his head against a cell wall while in custody. However, Ojwang's family lawyer, Julius Juma, said the body bore signs of severe physical trauma, including swelling on the head, nose and ears. Kenya's Independent Policing Oversight Authority has launched an inquiry into his death. South Africa and Mozambique are discussing challenges experienced at the ports of entry in Komatipoort in Mpumalanga province. BMA Commissioner Michael Masiapato says a lot has been done to improve the processing of cargo trucks at the Libombo border post. He was speaking at the 3-day meeting. Previously, cargo truck drivers spent days queuing to be processed at the border, exposing them to criminals. The two countries signed a joint action plan last year aimed at strengthening police efforts and combat transnational organized crime. Dr. Masiapato elaborates.
Very soon we are going to be announcing our private partner that is going to assist us in the redesigning of Libombo in this instance and make sure that it is opened up so that we are able to have dedicated lanes that we need to be able to use for the purposes of the movement of freight. The ultimate objective, as the Director Theron will indicate here, is the achievement of a non-stop border post concept.
Mexico has seized nearly 42 metric tons of the drug methamphetamine during raids on illegal laboratories in the state of Michoacán. The haul is thought to be worth more than $50 million. The BBC's Will Grant has the story.
5 properties were raided, which were apparently being used as clandestine laboratories for production of the drug, while photographs released by the authorities appear to show drums of precursor chemicals discovered in a warehouse. With this latest seizure, one of the largest of its kind, it is becoming increasingly clear that President Sheinbaum and her security team have moved on from her predecessor's strategy on the drug cartels. Ex-President Andrés Manuel López Obrador was often criticized by his opponents for running a strategy characterized as hugs, not bullets.
Recapping the top story this hour, 30 unclaimed bodies which were retrieved from underground in Stilfontein in South Africa's northwest province last year are being buried today in Klerksdorp. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulongwepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Joalane, for that update. Joalane will be back to give us the latest news at 1100 hours Central African time. Well, we're still going to keep going in this hour, and we're going to have our In the Cubicle feature. That's our workplace feature, where we look at the intricacies of either employing or being an employee. And it's tricky, isn't it? Especially in the world whereby technology has become a way that we want to self-correct our CVs, or a way of trying to look better as a candidate when you do send your CVs. And at times, we just let the apps do whatever they want, and we even kind of have information that's in our CVs that's not really accurate, right? It kind of is like a blur of what you used to do, but not what you actually did, right? And that's one of the biggest challenges, right? In an age where CVs are very polished to satisfaction and qualifications, and where candidates' credentials can be a little bit, blurred. The lines are very blurred today. It's really worrying to see that actually happening. So today we're going to be speaking why is making sure that your CV is verified. Number one, verified by you, but don't forget that also the employer can easily verify the work that you do. So all the facts that you have in your CV, as much as you've put them through your AI app, make sure that it is very accurate. We'll speak about this verification when we speak to HR specialist Thando Dingi, who is going to join us to talk a little bit more about this. And also we're going to be speaking to Afika Nonso, founder and CEO of SPAN, a verification-led employment platform built to restore trust, expand access, and connect job seekers to real opportunities.
Did you learn about finances when you were younger? No, I'm not speaking about in school in an accounting class when they taught you about debit and credit. I mean, in a very practical way. Did you ever get spoken to by your parents, maybe like someone elderly, a caregiver, to say this is how, finances work. This is how you can, learn these skills, these financial skills, and these are what financial risks are, and they can be handled in this way. I would say no, and I know many of you would say no as well, but we need to change things, right? We are the parents of today, and we need to assure that young people learn, about finances in an age-appropriate way throughout their lives. That's what's going on in our Money Matters feature in the next hour of the show, finding out about, age-appropriate ways to teach children about finances, but also teaching them about financial risk, because when we are here, now we're adults and we're learning all these things for the first time, and it's so overwhelming because we're only learning about it when we actually need to take action. You know, we're learning about debt just because we are in debt now. Like, oh my goodness, nobody told me about this version of my finances. Why don't I know anything? So it's good that we need to teach and, you know, correct children and help them get prepared for the real adult world, especially outside of the classroom, in a practical way, so that they can understand what to look forward to in the future. And by then, they already have a good scope of how to handle their finances and to how to handle financial risk. So we'll go into that for our Money Matters feature later. Do join us on our social media platforms. We are at Channel Africa 1 on Instagram, on X, hashtag on the move, on YouTube, as well as on TikTok, and on Facebook we're simply Channel Africa. We are live there as well. You can find us on Facebook Live. We're streaming from there. We're also streaming from our Instagram and streaming from YouTube. So there's so many ways to engage us and so many ways to be a part of the Channel Africa family. Let's go. This is the second hour of On the Move.
Je, una jambo lolote akilini mwako? Je, una shauku kuhusu maswala muhimu? Na je, una maoni ambayo unataka yasikike? Kweli, hili jukwaa ni la kwako. Piga simu au tuandikie kwenda WhatsApp namba alama ya kujumulisha 2760552594 na tutakupigia simu.
Mtangazaji wa habari zetu za Afrika Kusini mjini Johannesburg.
Hivyo unaweza kuwa mshirika kwenye matangazo yetu. Sio mazungumzo tu, ni fursa yako ya kuchangia maoni yako na kushirikiana na jumuiya ya wasikilizaji wanaotamani mtazamo wako. Tufuate kwenye mitandao ya kijamii. Tembelea tovuti yetu www.channelafrica.co.za na uwe tayari kushiriki na kuchangia maoni yako kwenye Channel Africa. Channel Africa, mtazamo wa Kiafrika.
Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live 5 days a week. On the move, weekdays, 9 a.m. to midday. Only on Channel Africa. Hashtag on the move.
Well, in an age where CVs can be polished to perfection and qualifications may not always be what they seem, verifying a candidate's credentials, experience, and background is no longer just practice. It's essential, especially in a time where AI is used to adapt to different CV requirements, right? And what we always want to do when we're seeking for a job is for us to look like we are perfect for that particular job. And for employers, it's good for them to do verification because it protects against fraud, reputational damage, and poor hiring. For job seekers, it reinforces trust and levels the playing field. So what actually should be verified by yourself who's seeking the job or the employer? And what happens when verification processes are flawed or biased? We're joined by human resources specialist Thando Ncube on the line. Thando, thank you for joining us right here on Channel Africa. Thando, are you there?
I'm there. Thank you so much, Benjamin, and thank you, Palesa, for having me this morning.
Hey, let's talk a little bit about this. It is no surprise that we're living in a world of AI, and we've always had these conversations around how to adapt your CV to a particular, job spec. And what we do at times, we just think that just adding that additional information that is in the job spec description is actually the way to go, even if you don't have those specific requirements, right? You know, those things seem very nuanced. They seem like small facts, little details. But should we be aware of those kind of things? Should we be more, slow when it comes to those kind of adaptations?
So definitely, Benjamin, I mean, first and foremost, as an employer, one of the critical things I'd be looking for in anyone that is coming to join me is their integrity and their honesty as a person. So already by misrepresenting what you're capable of, what you've done, and your experience, that causes a question when it comes to how honest you are as an employee. I think there's no harm in using all sorts of tools, be it ChatGPT or whatever other AI tool you want, to help best represent you, but it is critical that it is still you that you are representing.
I like the fact that you say it's you, but the you can be relatively, nuanced, because the person who's employing me does not know, Tando, who I really am, and they don't know the systems of where I used to work. So that rationalization is usually something that we utilize. Why is it so flawed?
It is quite flawed because inevitably the truth will come out. I mean, we've all seen the memes that have been going around where, someone said they're wonderful on Excel and then the manager says, present something on a spreadsheet and the person has no idea what the manager is talking about. So whether it is in the first week, the first month, but at some point, if you do not have a skill, that will definitely be picked up. I think it's important to note that depending on the job, the severity would be different. So as an example, if I claim to be a CA, there are a whole lot of legislative requirements that come with being a CA to enable me to do my job. And it is more serious. But even in your kind of entry level or lower level jobs, I think you are better off sharing what you do know. What I generally recommend that people do is show me that you've got the ability to learn the things that you don't know, as opposed to pretending that you know something, and when I expect you to deliver as your employer, you are unable to deliver.
It's easy to just go with the flow, right? And just to say, well, you know what? I'm going to put this whole thing into my AI. I'm going to put the specs of my CV in, or my job, the job that I want, into this AI machine, and I'm going to try mix things up. And that's okay, like you saying, right? But you should do a fact check after that kind of editing, right? What should you be looking out for yourself as the job seeker when you are verifying your own information that you are sending to your possible employer?
I think, firstly, it's important to remember that misrepresentation of information is fraud, specifically when it comes to things like qualifications, and these are punishable by law. So that's the first thing that we need to be aware of. Secondly, in terms of most employment contracts, again, misrepresentation is a dismissible offense. So not even an opportunity to kind of explain why. All of these tools that we recommend people use when putting together their CVs or their resumes are exactly that. They're tools to help you. They do not take over your accountability to ensure that what you present is indeed fact. So, use whatever tool you want, but when you go back and you look at it, make sure that anything that you claim to have done, you actually have done. Any qualification that you claim to have, you actually do have. If it's still in progress, make it clear on your CV that I don't have this degree yet, but it is in progress. I think we've seen quite a lot of times in the recent past, where specifically in the public sector, there's been a lot of misrepresentation, and institutions of higher learning really take that personally because it's their reputation that is on the line. So should you get caught out, it's not just that your employer that is going to, have issue with your misrepresentation, but even those institutions, etc., that you're claiming to have been a part of.
Tando, is it still relevant to have that willingness to learn? Because, as you said, we might not have absolutely everything that's on the job scope. Maybe you are qualified, but there's certain things that you particularly haven't learned yet. It seemed like it was something that used to work back in the day, but it doesn't seem like a lot of employers are looking for people who still have some on-job training to do.
Well, I would like to differ with that point a little bit, Palesa. Globally and in Africa and South Africa, we are moving towards a more skills-based hiring environment as opposed to qualification-based. Because research says that the degree that you did, by the time you graduate with your degree, some of the information you did in your first year is already obsolete. So yes, we are interested in your ability to learn. That is why your degree is important. However, I'm more interested to see, how willing are you to adapt to the changing world? You could have done an IT degree 10 years ago and still be irrelevant in this job market with things like AI and automation on the rise. So it's definitely critical that when you represent yourself, you show how, apart from whatever qualification you've done over your career, have been willing to, be agile, to adapt and to learn as you grow in your career.
I don't want to say that people lie, but I say the reason why others bend the truth is that they know that, AI is not one-sided. Employers are using AI as well. HR systems are using AI. And sometimes, many a times, in fact, these days, not an actual HR human holds your CV and looks through it. They're passed through these HR systems that are looking for the keywords that were in the job description. So people know this, and it's a new trick now. You take whatever's on the job post, you implement it within your CV, whether or not, I don't know, you've done it. So it's like bending the truth a little bit, maybe even lying, so that your CV can get into the next round where perhaps you will get an interview with an actual person. But you don't stand much of a chance of getting an interview if you don't really implement and sort of like, work through the system.
Sure. You're correct. And I think that's where you also need to be a little bit creative in your representation on your CV. So as an example, saying I have exposure to automation, as opposed to saying I've done an automation project. You're still able to show that I've been exposed to it, but you're not claiming to be the expert in that area.
Okay, I like that. So, not saying that you have actually done something, which would be a lie and, of course, a criminal offense, versus saying, I've been in workspaces where I've been exposed to particular things, or have varied interests in a particular thing that would also, sort of spotlight that through that AI systems that are being used. Well, we're going to leave it there. I think it's incredible what you're saying, and it's important because let's remind people, okay, here in South Africa in particular, it is a criminal offense to lie in your CV. And I know there are people who've actually gotten persecuted for that.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a big one. And then we're going to continue this conversation and look at it from the perspective of the employer. How do they actually verify and confirm a candidate's personal details, identity, and qualifications? Stay with us right here on Channel Africa.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move.
How should CVs or resumes be verified? What's the process that you need to take before submitting that CV into the particular employer? And how deep should employers go when verifying the information on that particular CV? We spoke about this and started the conversation with HR specialist Thando Ncube, but now we continue it with Afika Nonso, founder and CEO of SPAN, which is a verification-led employment platform built to restore trust, expand access, and connect job seekers to real opportunities in South Africa. Afika, thank you so much for your time this morning. It's an incredibly important conversation, not just because of the rate of our unemployment levels here in South Africa and the continent over, but because young people want to know how to land the job. There's so many of us and very little jobs out there.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks for having me, Palesa and Benjamin. I think with our platform, we sort of prioritize verification, as a key component in what we do. It is a platform built in trust, and our mission is sort of to restore trust back into the job market. And how we're actually going about that is to basically offer job seekers a platform where they're able to register and actually verify key documents, that basically confirm who they are. So our verification services on the platform goes from verifying a person's ID so that we can be sure that this person is who they say they are. I mean, these days you've seen a rise of a lot of remote work, hybrid work, and all of that kind of stuff. So, we sort of want to be able to be sure, that this person's ID that they're submitting to me, is exactly, the ID that has been submitted. And I think Thando also touched on the qualification aspect, where employers really want to know that this qualification that you say you have is indeed a qualification that you actually did. And part of our verification services actually does cover qualification verification, where a job seeker is able to actually upload their qualification, and we actually do that verification, and mark it as a verified qualification, so that when an employer actually actually gets to see this person's profile on Spun, they're able to tell that, this person's ID has been verified, this person's driver's license has been verified, this person's matric certificate has been verified, and whatever qualification that this person has actually uploaded against their profile, these too have been verified. So that's basically the approach that we have taken, to ensure that we give job seekers, a way to stand out in the job market, by having a verified profile. And the idea behind this is, we want employers to know the verification status of each candidate before they even go through the entire recruitment process. So from the minute you actually submit your CV, what we're calling all job seekers to do, and all employers to even request that, submit the CV, but also attach your SPAN report with it, because the SPAN report will actually from upfront tell the employer exactly what the verification statuses are of your qualifications, exactly what the verification statuses are of your personal identity, your ID, your driver's license, your bank account. And over and above this, our platform also does criminal and fraud checks. So even on the SPAN report, the employer will be able to know exactly your background. Do you have a criminal record? Do you have a fraud check, a fraud record? Do you exist in the South African fraud database? And that's what this SPAN report basically equips the employer with. And this is what sort of job seekers are able to use as their badge of honor. Saying, look, I'm not just here looking for work, but I'm actually a verified individual, and here's my SPAN report to prove it.
Yeah, I like the idea of this one because certification, certifying this document. I need to go to the police station and fix this, and at times it's like it's so much work when you can have just one centralized system that can help you with the verification process. Is that where this idea came from?
Yeah, so we sort of noticed that, as we, moving forward with life and as the years are going by, employers are placing quite more emphasis on ensuring that candidates are verified. That's why you've got organizations such as MIE that exist. And MIE is actually our verification partner. So we're not saying, guys, trust us as SPAN to tell you that this person is actually verified.
Yeah.
Whereas we are working with a company that is trusted, and we've actually integrated into their systems to ensure that we get the correct details of these candidates. And MIE is already, a company that is already being used by recruiters. It's already being used by employers. We're just saying, let's take that HR and administrative burden away from employers. Let's give the job seekers their own opportunity to sort of stand out in the job market, for themselves. And we see this even in the informal job market, right? So we're not only targeting or trying to be of value to organizations.
Yeah.
We find that a lot of people are being employed, and not necessarily by a company, but it could be a domestic worker being employed by a household. Even those kinds of people, they're letting people into their spaces, they're letting people into their houses, and what happens if trust wasn't a factor, right? Would we see more households hiring? Would we see, a household having 2 domestic workers instead of 1? Would we see a household, being more open to actually creating this employment? And outside of the corporate world, that's where sort of we found the sweet spot to say, it's not just for the formal job sector, but even in the informal job sector, people want to work with people they trust.
Yeah.
And the SPAN report does exactly that.
I'm glad that you mentioned the informal job sector because, platforms that are new have to be a good reflection of the landscape that we're in. And in the landscape of South Africa, for example, there are incredibly, big informal sector, even more than the formal job sector. And usually these are people who maybe have someone who's just written them a note somewhere, who work in people's houses. Maybe they stand by the corner and they do some bricklaying in a particular place. And those are not spaces where you have formal places or even a formal CV to actually reflect back on. Why was it so important to be a real reflection of what job looks like in the country?
Exactly. So we've built the platform to reflect the real job market of South Africa. So the journey that employers go through on our platform and the journey that job seekers go through on our platform is a reflection of how actually employment actually works, not just in the formal job market, but also in the informal. So you'll find that when you come into our platform, as an employer, you actually are able to search for jobs and actually find verified candidates. But the journey doesn't end there, right? On the platform, an employer is actually able to send a job offer because that's how real life works in South Africa, right? You meet someone, you meet a domestic worker, you say, okay, I need you to clean my house, I'm offering you 300 rand, right? We've put that entire journey onto our platform, right? And job seekers can actually receive job offers, accept job offers, and reject job offers even through USSD. So we've made the platform to be very accessible, not just on our web-based portal, but even to those who don't have internet access. They can actually engage with this platform, engage with employers using USSD, which only requires airtime. Right, and you take that a notch up, you're able to do all of this functionality, search for jobs, apply for jobs using a WhatsApp bot, because not everybody has a laptop. You can actually upload your CV, take a you upload your ID, take a picture of your driver's license using this WhatsApp bot. But those who are a bit more technologically enabled, who have a laptop, who are able to scan documents, they can actually do all of this stuff using our web-based portal. And that's sort of the approach that we've taken, to sort of create a very inclusive job market, and that is very accessible to every South African. And what this basically allows us is that once I've done a job with you, you can actually leave a rating and a review for me, right? And I can leave a rating and a review for you as an employer. That way, we're not really relying on experience. If I said I'm good on Excel, I might find a review of an employer saying very sharp at Excel, or very good on Excel, and that's just, you're not just taking my word for it, but you're taking other employers' word for the experience that I've done and the work that I've done.
100%.
And you can find yourself being the only 5-star rated bricklayer in the country, and you can actually now say I'm the best bricklayer in the country, and that doesn't become hearsay. You can say, go look on Spun, tell me if you can find any other 5-star rated bricklayer, and be giving these undervalued contributors a voice and the ability to actually be seen, because they are contributors, but they might not be valued because they're seen as, you're just a bricklayer, you're just a domestic worker, you're just a cleaner.
All right,
the
Africa,
platform gives them that voice.
We'll need to leave it there. We've run out of time. Let us know where we can find out more information about this Span platform.
Yeah, people can register on our website, www.span, that's spelled SPAN.co.za. You can register a profile, but you can also dial our USSD code, *120 *SPAN hash, that's 77226 hash. And you can also catch us on our social, SPAN_ZA. Over there, you'll be able to follow our story, follow what we're doing, and also be able to access our WhatsApp bot for further engagement and registration.
Thank you so much for your time, Afika. That's Afika Nonzo, founder and CEO of SPAN, a verification-led employment platform here in South Africa. 10:31 Central Africa time. Let's get our latest sports news.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
We begin with athletics this hour. The recent collaboration of the Confederation of African Athletics, CAA, and the Worldwide Scholarship, WWS, has reached a chapter of rolling out initiatives that will benefit continental athletics and athletes while drawing attention of the global stars to participate in African spectacles. WWS founder and CEO Munya Moraire unpacks the 2026 inaugural African Athletics Series, the WAS.
As an organization, we signed a momentous agreement with the Confederation of African Athletics a few weeks ago in Cape Town. And as we track on in our first 100 days of this agreement, one of the initiatives that we're putting together is the African Athletics Series, which is going to be competitions that are run across the continent to level the playing field, to bring the best of the world in sports and in athletics to come and compete in Africa.
Maraire, who is also a musical artist, grew up playing rugby with love for American football. He is exhilarated about the role played by African athletics coaches to develop champions across the continent.
I think this is a time for me to kind of give a shout out to some of these coaches that are there coaching youngsters, because obviously the coaches have to upskill themselves, and we do coaching clinics where we bring, international coaches to teach the international standards in the different sports that we're involved in. And, behind the scenes, obviously, as a coach needs to improve and know what the world standards are, the way to prepare an athlete, to make sure that you don't overtrain them, but at the same time prepare them for big global games. And, the coaches on the continent have really been doing a very good job.
Egypt's Al Ittihad and Libya's Al Ahli Tripoli are the first two teams to secure the ticket to the semi-finals of the playoffs of the Basketball Africa League BAL 2025. Al Ahli had to beat Cape Verde's Creole Star to advance to the semi-finals, while Al Ittihad overcame Morocco's FOS Rabat in Pretoria, South Africa, where the playoffs action is unfolding. The BAL quarterfinals continue tomorrow as APR of Rwanda takes on Rivers Hoopers of Nigeria before US Monastir of Tunisia faces Pedro de Luanda of Angola. The BAL, a partnership between the International Basketball Federation FIBA and the NBA, is a professional league featuring 12 club teams from across Africa that completed its fourth season in June 2024. Let's end with the cricket news. The former Proteas captain Graeme Smith and longtime teammate Hashim Amla were both inducted into the ICC Hall of Fame at a glittering ceremony held at the iconic Abbey Road Studios in London. The two Proteas legends were part of a group of 7 former players to be inducted, with Australia's Matthew Hayden, former New Zealand spinner Daniel Vettori, and ex-India skipper Mahindra Singh Dhoni. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fidel Ngwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África @ newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move.
Thank you so much, File Lengwati. Let's bring back Thabiso Lehuko for our latest business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thanks, Palesa, and good morning. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa is today set to engage with the youth beneficiaries of the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention and Presidential Employment Stimulus flagship programs in Pretoria. The President is expected to visit 3 sites at the Sefako Makgatho Primary School in Salisbury, the South African Creative Industries Incubator in Easterist, and the Foundation for Professional Development in Pretoria East. The visits will highlight innovative implementation models and public-private partnerships that are delivering dignified, high-quality employment and skilling outcomes for youth at scale. Channel Africa's Michael Mbewe on this report.
The President will during the visits interact directly with youth beneficiaries, educators and implementing partners and see firsthand how the PES and PYEI's community-based demand-led approach is reshaping labour market access for the country's most excluded youth. The site visits will commence with the Sefako Makgatho Primary School, a part of the Basic Education Employment Initiative and a flagship program for the PES, designed to address the dual challenges of the youth unemployment and support for the basic education system by placing young people in roles within public schools as education and general school assistant. The program is implemented by the Department of Basic Education and administered by the Industrial Development Corporation.
Bloomberg reports that the World Bank has approved a $1.5 billion loan to South Africa to support structural reforms aimed at boosting the country's infrastructure. The loan amount will be used to enhance energy security, increase port and rail volumes, and support the shift to a low-carbon economy. Sharon Bryce-Peace reports that a World Bank media liaison officer refused to share their statement on the loan facility when it was requested by the SABC.
According to a statement from the bank, the loan would address the nation's challenges of low growth and high unemployment by easing constraints in its energy and freight transport sectors. The lender highlighted power generation breakdowns as also curbing growth. The money will go towards Eskom's efforts to bolster the grid for renewable operations and Transnet to support freight transport capacity.
South African telecommunication company Telkom has reported a 62.3% rise in full-year earnings and resumed dividends after a 4-year suspension, declaring also a special dividend of 98 South African cents per share. In 2020, the operator of South Africa's biggest fixed-line network announced the suspension of dividends for the next 3 financial years, starting in 2021. However, after reaching the initial target, the under-pressure operator delayed resuming dividend payments as it faced challenging market conditions. Nigeria's 2-year-old cost of living crisis, which has seen the price of grocery staples like rice rise over 100% since 2023, has reached the relatively affluent class of dog owners who are struggling to feed their pets because of soaring food costs. Keeping animals as pets is a recent trend in Nigerian society, where traditionally people were more likely to live with a chicken or goats reared for food. Over the past 2 decades, there was a rise in the number of households in urban areas keeping pet dogs, often for security in a country plagued by violent crime, but also for companionship. China has extended a high-profile investigation into imported pork from the European Union by 6 months, days before the probe initiated a year earlier was due to wrap up. In a statement, the country's Commerce Ministry says China has decided to extend the investigation period to the 16th of December due to the complexity of the case. The probe was launched on the 17th of June last year after the EU's decision to impose anti-subsidy tariffs on imported electric vehicles made in China. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 559, Botswana 13 pula 23, Kenya 128 shilling 41, and Zambia 24 kwacha 76. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar will cost you 5 ruble 56, Russia 78 rubles 82, India 85 rupees 66, China 7 yuan 18, and in South Africa $1 will cost you 17 rand 72. $1 is trading at 73 pence to the British pound and 87 to the euro. Commodities markets: gold $3,306, platinum $1,216 per ounce, Brent crude oil $67.33 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Tabiso Lohoko.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mokoenata@SABC. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa. praised our young voices. This month, Channel Africa, celebrating Youth Month. Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move.
Hey, thank you for joining us on DSTV Channel 802 OpenView 628. Remember the SABC Plus app? Don't shy away from that. It's actually a great resource, whether you listen to us in other formats as well, but just to have it on your phone is also a fantastic way when you're traveling and you've got access to data, when you just outside of the excess of mainstream media, you can just have your SABC Plus app and just listen to Channel Africa there. And so just make sure that you get it. It's fantastic. All content there is for free. All you have to do is just sign up and get your data or your Wi-Fi there. Well, it's time for our Vintage Africa feature today. And today we're going to be looking at something that's interesting. It's snowing right here in the SADC region, not so far away from us in Lesotho. And who thought it would snow in Africa? Pali, have you experienced African snow?
Maybe when I was younger. I think only about 2 times or 3 times in my entire lifetime. So yes, I have experienced it, but not to that extent where it's I've seen it come down from the sky, but I've never been covered in snow, you know?
So it's very cold here in Johannesburg, South Africa. If you can see in our live stream, we're wearing our jackets and we're just making sure that we are really warm in studio. But as much as snowfall is rare in Africa, it's not an unheard of reality. It usually just takes place in mountainous regions with high altitudes, especially here in the southern hemisphere's winter months. But it's very something that is unique, not in something that happens in the entire continent. It is observed in different locations, Southern Africa, countries like Tanzania. We know they have Mount Kilimanjaro there. We've got the Drakensberg Mountains here in South Africa. Lesotho, just around the corner. It's not something that is unique. In fact, we've had many historical examples of the snow. In fact, the occurrences are listed. The records of it is from 1956.
Okay.
It snowed in 1956. Snowed again in 1962.
Mm-hmm.
It snowed in Africa in 1964.
Okay.
In 1981. In 2006, in 2007, and 2012, and the recent being 2023. I remember the 2023 snows very accurately.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the beautiful thing is that we're also starting to actually monetize off of that. Lesotho is one of those countries that gets heavy snow every year, and they have what they call the Afri-Ski. So every time around June and July, you can go there, just like people would go to any other skiing resort in places around the world. Lesotho has an amazing Afri-Ski resort where people come from all over the world and all over Africa to come and experience the snow, but also to come and ski. Who would have thought that, when I was young, I always look at these Christmas movies, which were always American.
What was the famous one? That little boy's naughty.
Yes, Home Alone and such. And it's always snowing heavily, and the family would go on a skiing trip or a skiing resort.
And you're like,
you can take a skiing trip now right here on Africa.
Yeah, absolutely. So man, it's not something that's unique. Maybe you are listening to us from outside the continent or even inside in different parts of the continent. You're like, this is very unique. Not something very unique. Yes, it's very rare to have it, but it's very much of a recurrence. And as you've seen in the 2000s, we've had a lot of snow, and I'm sure we know why, because we know climate change is huge. It's not a coincidence that in the 2000s we've had 4, and this is the 5th occurrence of snowfall. So we need to be aware that climate change is very real. Well, that's our Vintage Africa for today, just to let you know that it's been very normal for us to have snow here on the African continent. It's not a new thing.
The rhythm of Africa, the pulse of the continent. This is Channel Africa, the African perspective. Joel Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Mariamo Kumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia, 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tepuho Likweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joel Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Mariamo Kumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia, 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice unlock Africa's investment. Presented by the European Entrepreneurs, the Pan-African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Shared Value Africa. This is a summit not to be missed. Register now at euafricasmesummit.eu. Keeping you on the know and on the move.
It's 10:50 Central Africa time. You're still tuned into On the Move right here on Channel Africa, giving you the African perspective. We just played you Java with Umama right here on Channel Africa. And of course, we keep things moving. This is Rema with Ginger Me.
Is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tepuho Likweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joel Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Mariamo Kumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia, 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tepuho Likweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m., 5 till 6. We put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joel Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia. 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond.
As we move through the second hour of On the Move, we're moving into our final hour. That's going to be the Money Matters feature. We just left in the cubicle speaking about the verification of CVs and resumes. And I'm glad this is happening because, you know, obviously, I know some of you guys are lying. I know some of you guys are lying in those CVs. Some of you are using your friends and your cousins as the people they can call to come and verify that you did this particular job. We know this, right? This is 100% true. But it's not, a form of trying to push people out of the job market, which is also another issue, right? People are lying for a reason. There's a lot of unemployment. There aren't enough jobs. But in some places across the world, it is illegal to lie in your CV. South Africa is one of those places. And, people have been fired. People have also been persecuted legally for lying in their CV. So you can't just say you have a neuroscience degree, a post-grad, when you know that you never have. I mean, it's a very important thing and a very far-fetched lie. But, even though we're speaking about not lying, we got some great tips from Tando Ngube, who's an HR specialist that we spoke to say, yeah, you won't know everything. And the issue is there are these AI systems and we had to adapt to them, right? We know that our CVs aren't held by individuals anymore, that piece of paper, someone reading it and saying, okay, this seems like a cool person. They have the right amount of qualifications, but they lack a certain amount of skills, but maybe I could teach them. Now all these CVs are just going through, the system that says these are the keywords that I'm looking for, and if they're not in this particular CV, I'm not going to forward that CV and I'm just going to let it go. And that's why we're sort of like mixing up the truth and being creative. But you can still be creative in trying to learn. So use the keywords, but don't say I have done this. You can say I'm willing to learn about this. I have been in an environment where this is happening and it's something that I've been exposed to, but there's still a lot of learning that I need to do with it. So then the AI system will still catch on that key phrase, but you won't go to the next round of the interview phase with a lie in your CV and an expectation that you'll be able to know how to do this. So remember, verify, great app, great platforms that are being, put out right now, like Spun that we spoke about as well. They can help you not just verify, but can also give your former employers an opportunity to verify you and say, hey, I give this person a 5-star. So just like when you leave your Uber or when you just got your food delivery and you can give your driver or your deliverer a certain amount of stars, 5 out of 5, the car was neat. The employers can do that for and perhaps others can see and say, yeah, actually the former employers are quite happy with these particular skills and I think these are the skills I need. I'm going to take those on as well. It's incredible what AI can do, but we have to use it to our advantage and not to our disadvantage by trying too hard, and of course lying in there. That's how we wrapped up that conversation. We're going to be moving on into our Money Matters feature, speaking about financial well-being in a family setup, and how parents and guardians are teaching their children about finances. It's an important conversation to have because most of us are just winging it. To be honest, there are things, I'm 36 right now, and there are things that I'm still coming across for the first time, financial things that I'm still coming across for the first time. It's just like, hey, you know what, I'm just going to wing it. But I don't think the young people, I mean, they'll do a certain amount of winging as well. It's the world after all. You can't teach everyone everything, but they at least need to know the basics that many of us had to learn by ourselves once we're in the job place, once we are independent, and you're like, wow, I didn't know all of this were financial burdens that I would have to carry. Let's teach the children about finances and also help them navigate financial risks in a healthy way. We're going to that conversation in the next hour of the show with Ramukebe Tamache, who's going to be chatting to us. They are the spokesperson of Just Money, helping our childs develop financially in the different stages of their life. We are still live on Facebook, so join us there. We are Channel Africa. It's good to see you, and it's good to have you there. We love to engage with you on those platforms, and we really love the fact that you get to watch us live in our studio and interact with us as the conversations happen. We're also live on YouTube. We are at Channel Africa 1 on that platform. Don't forget, if you also want us to hear your voice, you can send us a voice note or a text on WhatsApp. That is +27 63 406 9126. Yeah, you can also give us a ring. So we're available there just for you. Moving on into the next hour of On the Move. Stay with Benjamin Moshatama and myself, Palesa, as we continue unpacking all these conversations from an African perspective. Let's keep things moving. We have Jolane Tulongwepe back for our latest news update.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Palesa. Top stories this hour. 30 unclaimed bodies retrieved from underground in Stilfontein in South Africa to be buried today, and Ukraine's president calls for a concrete US and European response to Russia. Good morning. 30 unclaimed bodies which were retrieved from a disused mine in Stilfontein in South Africa's northwest province last year are being buried as paupers in Klerksdorp today. It's believed some swabs from the bodies will be stored for DNA tests for families that might claim them later. The bodies were retrieved during the government-led operation to rescue illegal miners from underground at Shaft 11 in Stilfontein. 20 more bodies will be buried at the end of the month. The High Court in Johannesburg, South Africa, will hear arguments today against Operation Dudula, an organisation accused of xenophobic and racist activities. The case filed by Kopanang Africa against xenophobia and others argues that Operation Dudula participated in illegal conduct against foreign nationals. Operation Dudula, a campaign launched in 2021, intends to combat crime and the influx of illegal immigrants into the country, among other things. The applicants, represented by the Socio-Economic Rights Institute, or SERI, are seeking an order prohibiting Operation Dudula's conduct. Attorney at SERI, Asenati Tukela.
It is to enforce the powers under Section 41 of the Immigration Act, which simply states that only an immigration officer can go around demanding that people produce their documents to prove their legality in the country. But the second and most important is to interdict and restrain Operation Dudula from the harassment and the xenophobic attacks that they have instituted against foreign nationals, which are denying people from education, denying people from accessing health, denying people basically from enjoying the human rights that are guaranteed by the Constitution.
The fourth G20 Health Working Group meeting in Johannesburg, South Africa, is looking at the world's preparedness to prevent and respond to a pandemic should the need arise. This is one of the 5 priorities of the G20 Health Working Groups in its week-long gathering attended by health leaders, experts and policy makers from across the world. During Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi's keynote address, he emphasized that the pandemic agreement, which is adopted and supported by 124 member states, is a clear global consensus on the need for a new path forward.
The lessons are solidified in the pandemic preparedness resolution, which was overwhelmingly adopted last month at the World Health Assembly in Geneva under the auspices of the World Health Organization. This year was historic because after COVID-19, having learned a lot of harsh lessons and having seen the weaknesses of the world response, it was agreed that intergovernmental negotiating forum be established to negotiate what must happen if another pandemic comes. And it outlines exactly what must happen, what must the world do in case another pandemic comes, so that we don't repeat the same mistakes.
Dozens of activists have staged a protest outside a mortuary in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, following the death of a 31-year-old man in police custody. Albert Omondi Ojwang's death has sparked outrage in Kenya. He was arrested following a complaint by the deputy police chief who accused him of tarnishing his name on social media. In an initial statement, police said that Ojwang sustained head injuries after hitting his head against a cell wall while in custody. However, the Ojwang family's lawyer, Julius Juma, said the body bore signs of severe physical trauma, including swelling on the head, nose and ears. Kenya's Independent Policing Oversight Authority has launched an inquiry into his death. And finally, President Volodymyr Zelensky has called for a concrete US and European response to Russia's increasing drone and missile attacks. The Ukrainian president singled out Washington, which he said had the power to force Moscow to peace. Overnight, Ukraine was hit by more than 300 drones, many of them targeting the capital Kyiv. Russia also saw Ukrainian drone attacks. The BBC's Paul Adam has the details.
Last night's attack on Kyiv went on for several hours, with waves of drones flying directly over the city centre. Tracer fire lit up the night sky as air defence units tried frantically to shoot them down. Cars and apartment buildings were set on fire. The southern city of Odessa also came under attack. One person was killed. It all came just hours after the latest large-scale prisoner swap began. It's supposed to unfold over several days, but we've yet to be told when to expect the next group. Last night, President Zelensky said details of the whole process were more sensitive than usual.
Recapping the top story this hour, 30 unclaimed bodies which were retrieved from underground in Stilfontein in South Africa's northwest province last year are being buried today in Klerksdorp. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Cholani Tulongwebe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Hey, you know, Benji, recently, in fact, just last week, I think.
Yeah, what's up?
My son and I, we were fighting.
Okay, which is a good sign.
Yeah.
You guys are both alive.
Yeah. We're fighting because I want him to show me how much he has in his bank account.
Oh, wow.
So much so because I was like, okay, fine, let's show each other how much is in. I have a sneaky feeling that boy has more money than he lets
I think
up.
so too.
I think he has
probably
money.
has more money than you.
Yeah, that's the thing. Because I'm like, if I don't know how much you have, how am I going to ask you for money? So I've got a very sneaky feeling that he has a lot more money than he lets on. And I said, okay, fine, if you really don't have money, show me your account, show me what's in there. Because I know for certain that my son is good at saving, right? He's not like he works or anything. He gets an allowance from me. But I know there's other ways that he makes money. I just don't know how and where, but I know there's money in his account.
Yeah.
And I don't know why he doesn't want to show me.
Yeah.
But it's also a positive thing
I
for
get
me.
it though. He probably knows that once he shows you, he's not going to be able to ask for
I'm
more.
gonna say first of all, yes, because that's also how he makes more money. He's like, I don't have airtime. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna buy you airtime. He's like, no, don't buy the airtime. Send me the money for the airtime. I'm like, but if you're gonna buy airtime with it, why can't you just get airtime? No.
Clever
And then he
kid.
makes excuses and it says no because Telkom takes my money and this. And I'm like, it doesn't make sense. So why can't I just give you airtime and I just have to give you the money? So not only does he know that he probably won't get much more from me if he shows me how much is in his account, but also because I might just say, why don't you just buy me something nice? You know what I mean? So he's quite sneaky like that.
I like the fact that he gets you.
And I said, I'm going to show you how much is in my account as well. And then we're even. So show me, please. And because he had said no so much, the fact that he didn't even want to see how much was in my account means there's money in there. But it's also a moment of pride because I'm like, well, for someone who doesn't work and he's still very young and just gets an allowance, it shows that he's not, he's not a terrible spender. He is a saver and he loves spending money. He loves sweets and all these nice things. But he also is really good at saving. And that for me was a little bit of a pat on the back, even though he didn't show me how much he has in his account. But I'm glad that there's something in there that I'm not constantly having to give him. So that we're speaking about that. We're speaking about finances in the family, but also for children, how parents and caregivers are teaching their children about finances through the various stages of their lives. We'll be chatting to Ramukebe Tamahe, the spokesperson of Just Money, who speak to us about the importance of young people navigating finances, but also recognizing and navigating financial risks.
Yeah, sounds very cool. And you know what? It's so important for us to figure these things out because we hardly really talk about money, and we do care a lot about money, but we don't really talk about it. So this is where we take care of you and we take care of ourselves. Look, we're not just imposing these things on you. We are learning with you as the show goes on every day from Monday to Friday from 9 to 12. We are learning alongside with you. So let's hold each other's hands just in the next few minutes and find out more about why money matters.
Your weekday afternoons have been upgraded by the Upside with me, Tebohole Kuleni, and my partner in crime, Nompumelelo Ngubeni.
And if you want to find out all things luxury, fashion, travel, and arts and culture, this is exactly the place to be.
Prepare to be delighted. If it's hip, if it's happening, we are talking about it. We talk about what's now, what's next, and most importantly, what matters most on the African continent and the diaspora.
Do you know what time it is? Catch us every weekday on Channel Africa from 1 to 4 p.m. Central African Time.
Yeah, that's us every weekday afternoon.
Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move.
It's time for our Money Matters feature here on The Move, where we speak all things personal finance. And usually when we speak about personal finance, we think about it from an adult perspective, right? And the reason why we even have to have conversations about money and why it matters is because we are in situations where we only start really learning about personal finance in our adulthood. We only start learning about taxes because we have to pay them. We only start learning about saving because there's something that we need to have saved for that we need to pay for now. We only start learning about emergency funds when an emergency comes up and all these other things and all these other examples simply because we didn't get enough or even any at all financial literacy when we were younger. So now we're trying to sort of turn that tide, right? We are the adults of today and yeah, we're having a hard time with our personal finance, but that doesn't mean that our children have to go through the same hard time one day in the future. And that's why it's important to start having money conversations within a family context as a parent or as a guardian, maybe even an uncle or an aunt to children in your surrounding. It's also your responsibility to make sure that children don't learn about some of these financial things only when they become adults. So how do we do that? How do we learn or teach children about finances? First of all, we're also learning ourselves as we go, but how do we teach them in also an age-appropriate way through the various stages of their life? Also, they need to understand about financial risks. Those are things that we're also not too used to talking about. How are young people going to recognize and navigate financial risk today and in their future? We're speaking to the spokesperson of Just Money, Ramokebe Tamache, who's joining us on the line to chat about this. Ramokebe, it's not like we also have all the answers, and maybe that's why we're so afraid to teach young people about their finances, because we don't know that much either.
Palesa, and thank you very much for having me on your show. Yeah, like you say, we all don't know the complete answer. I mean, the financial world is very complicated, and not one person knows every aspect. And it's especially dire with our financial youth, because if we're as adults struggling with the financial landscape, it's even worse for our youth. I mean, understanding financial literacy is very essential to empower people to make informed decisions about managing their money, and which leads to greater financial security for everyone, not just us as adults, but also for our youth, as you say.
We do know that, we need money to survive. And most of us say we love money, but we don't like to speak about money. And that's what can be hard, because we as adults don't really have a good relationship with speaking about money. And that makes it even harder to open up about a financial conversation with our children.
That's true. And if I want to give you a bit of some general stats about financial literacy amongst even just the adults, there was a 2022 research done by the Financial Service Conduct Authority, which estimated about 51% of South African adults are financially illiterate. And another study done by the Dynamic study in the discussion paper saw that the figure is around about 40 to 42%. So that gives about 50% of the adult South African population. The large majority of them are financially illiterate, which would obviously mean that there's no literacy that they can pass on to the younger generation, which puts them sets them back or sets them up for failure when they go into the industry or want to be a part of the economy. And which is why financial literacy is very important to learn as yourself as an adult, and to also start at a very young age for your children, to ensure that they don't come into situations where they unable to handle, for example, how to save, or they find themselves in a debt spiral, or they don't know how to differentiate between scams or frauds. And this is the financial literacy that's needed to be imposed on our children at a very young age.
Many of us grew up in situations where being taught about money always came from a place of lack. Mommy, Daddy, can I please have 10 Rand for school lunch tomorrow? Oh, I don't have money. Can I please have this? I don't have money. Oh, can we buy McDonald's on the way? There's food at home. I don't have money. And it seems like that would be our only interaction that many of us have had with financial literacy. Parents don't have money, they work hard for money, and they don't have much to spare.
That is true, and that's what majority of us have gone through in our lives, to experience any form of financial inclusion, of how to understand finances, is when you've obviously dealt with your parents when they don't have money. But there's many ways to teach financial literacy to the young. I mean, for example, if you're going to start with the young children, so these are anyone who's younger than the teenage age, it all starts with teaching them the difference between things that they want and things that they need. For example, if you're going to the store, you can show your child that, hey, these are the essential items that we need to buy today. Things like bread, things like school shoes, books, and then things like sweets and all of these are wants. These are not necessities. So these are small things that you can teach and impose on your children from a young age, and even introduce things like having a clear jar so that they can start saving, even if it's small amounts. It's just that the concept of saving starts at a young age, and as they start working and become adults and they generate more income, they'll be able to implement a lot of the learnings from a young age. So even when you don't have money as a family, it's small things that you can start introducing financial literacy to your children.
Absolutely. But then, when do you actually start? Because it seems like you are saying something very profoundly long-term here, and that's going to also characterize the relationship that you have with your child, how young should you start? Seems like you should start at the ages when they're already in kindergarten.
Yeah, at a very young, the moment that you can start having a proper conversation with your child is the ideal time to start imposing a lot of those learnings for your children. So at a very young age, even when they're in grade 1, grade 2, you can start a lot of these lessons, but it's something that you go towards every step of their childhood. For example, if they're young children, you start with small things like a shopping list, telling them what to buy, what not to buy, the difference between wants and needs. And then once they start being in the teens and tweens age, that's when you start introducing things like getting an allowance and teaching them how to save and manage that allowance. So even if it's something small like 50 Rand a month, a lot of us obviously don't come in homes with large sums of money, but getting 50 Rand a month as an allowance as a teen is a lot of money. And you can impose how they manage that money, how they save, when they use them, how to grow that. That's things that don't need large amounts, and it's a different stage in their life and a different that you can provide. And then once they start becoming young adults or older and they start being included in the economy, that's when you can start getting a bit deeper into concepts. So teaching them about credit, teaching them about interest, teaching them about debt. So for example, someone who's a 17-year-old going into tertiary, they're most probably going to take up a student loan. So it's a good time to teach them that, hey, there's interest involved in the student loan and how your repayment terms are and what the total debt that you're paying, how you can save around your finances. So it's just about teaching them different steps of how to manage their finances at different stages of their life.
Ramokebe, let's speak about making sure that you building a good relationship between your children and money, even if it's not the kind of relationship that you perhaps have with money. What about positive reinforcement when it comes to the relationship that children have with money?
So positive reinforcement is very important, especially when you're having a discussion with your children and educating them in money, is that, for example, you can teach them about things how, for example, compound interest works, where they can invest their money. For example, if they get 100 Rand every month and every year this is about 1,000 Rand, and if they put that in a 10% interest savings, they will get about 1,100 every other year. So this is things that you can teach to your children, and that money is not necessarily something that they should run away, but there's positive aspects on how they can grow the money, and they should not fear how they manage or what financial situation that they find themselves in, that will be the end goal or the outcome of their lives. If they start very slowly and compound their knowledge, they'll be able to generate wealth and protect their assets and just generally build wealth.
And hopefully, as the generation of parents of today, we're not telling our children, money doesn't grow on trees. Let's take a break. Ramokebe will come back and continue speaking about teaching children age-appropriate ways to financial literacy. But then let's also come back and speak about those financial risks and how they can learn and navigate them. It's 20 minutes past 11 Central Africa time. We'll continue this conversation after the break.
Hey guys, question. Have you thought about what happens between 9 o'clock until midday, Saturday and Sunday? Well, it's me. Those that know me call me the fun police, and I'm that girl, that voice on your radio. My name is Pule Mulebati. I'm all about the finer things in life. Where to go, what to wear, who to see, and ultimately what to do. We aspire to bring you the best in travel, entertainment, with a dash or maybe a dose of laughter. And then, of course, we switch things up a bit when we look at technology. I love what's happening with AI, because you blink, something new pops up. So the challenge is constantly there. I'm learning every single time on the show. So catch me every single Saturday and Sunday at 9 a.m. until 12 midday Central African Time, Baba.
We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet, Channel 628.
Hey, thank you for joining us here on Channel Africa. We're winding things down. It is our final hour of On the Move, but definitely we haven't wrapped up the conversations yet. We still have our Money Matters feature that we are wrapping up now. And we're speaking to our guest on how do you actually start with young people in ensuring that they are money savvy. We have our guest from Just Money who is joining us on this one. That is Ramukebe. Let's talk a little bit about the fact that we need to start actually also making sure that we're also accountable to our children. Palesa earlier was speaking about having a fight with his son about, money issues and asking him, how much do you have in your bank account? And this, I was like, no, there's no way that you are going to actually find out how much I'm making. But I like the fact that they have that kind of transparent relationship, that they're also holding each other accountable for their money matters in their relationship. How important is that kind of transparency?
So being transparent with your children is very important. I mean, being transparent doesn't mean that you need to go into the finer details and every little cent of where your income comes from, but being transparent allows your child to understand the situation that you guys find yourselves in as a family. For example, if you're telling your child every month that you don't have money to buy this and this and this, and your child doesn't understand because you're going to work every day, you should have money to afford all these things that I want, it causes a bit of a disconnect between you and your child. So if you're transparent that these are our needs as a family, these are the things that we're spending money without even being a bit granular about the details, but so that the child has an in-depth understanding that, with the income that comes in, there's a lot of other expenses that have to be catered for. And this is where teaching your children financial risk comes in. So just because you earn 100,000 doesn't mean that you're free to spend 80,000. A portion of that needs to go into savings. A portion of that needs to go into investments. A portion of that needs to go into catering debts, so that you don't find yourself, for example, taking out more and more debt and you find yourself in a debt spiral. So it's important to be transparent so that your children understand when they also come to income that, this is how we manage money. This is how my family used to manage money. And I don't want to find myself in a situation where I'm falling in a debt spiral or, I have no savings or I'm impulsively spending. So if you are transparent to your children, those learnings will go into them and how they manage money into the future.
I love that. How about opening a savings account for them, using real life tools that are in the real world for them to actually navigate? How about also introducing risks for them? How do you do that slowly but responsibly?
So introducing risk is so important. It's a fundamental life skill that is not just for adults to know, but for young adults and children to know, especially when it comes to things like, for example, defaulting on a loan or losing on an investment. So understanding risk helps you decide how much risk you're willing to take on, especially when it comes into investing, so that yes, you want to build wealth, you want to become within the middle class of society, but there's a certain amount of risk that you should take in your current position. And these are things that people should learn at a very young age. And like you say, they should be introduced to a lot of financial platforms to help them better understand the financial goals. Like, for example, there's a lot of platforms like Just Money where we offer access to your credit profile and your credit score. That by looking at platforms like that, you can understand your credit health and how you fit in society to take on more debt. And a lot of other platforms like Capitec, Live Better Academy courses, where it offers courses to a lot of young people and a lot of adults of any age. And the aim is just basic financial literacy. So it covers various courses about how to invest, how to reach financial goals, or eventually just to be financially free. So there's a lot of platforms that are out there that you should start introducing to your children at a young age, so that as they grow older, they get into that habit of using these platforms to make decisive financial decisions.
That's great. And the thing about it, how do you make it even more practical in terms of giving them like a bank account or a bank card? What kind of real tools in real time can you start introducing while they're younger?
Sure. So, for example, you can start opening up tax-free savings accounts for your young children, so they can start saving things like 50 or 100 rand at a young age and work towards something. So these are things that you can start opening up at a very young age for your children to have savings for the tertiary age or even after tertiary. And yeah, you can also open things like bank accounts or bank accounts for children, where every month they can start learning how to manage whatever allowance that they receive, send it to their bank account, teach them how to budget on on that allowance that they receive, and manage their money, and then put that into various savings account. And yeah, there's a multitude of apps that you can introduce to children to track spending, build savings, set financial goals. And a lot of these features are on banking apps today. So if you do open up a bank account for your children, they have a lot of these features that they can start tracking their spending, building savings, and setting some financial goals.
How about stocks and cryptocurrency? Am I taking things too far now?
So when it does come to things like stocks and cryptocurrency, I do recommend that you speak to a financial advisor. Because a lot of these things, they do come with a lot of risk, and it's good to introduce risks to your children at a very young age, because they have a lot more time to take on more risk as opposed to when you're an adult. So if you do introduce things like investing and stocks and crypto, I do recommend to speak to a financial advisor. Set out the goals that you want to achieve for your children. For example, if you want to save up for tertiary and you want a bit of a high risk investment, which will go into stocks or crypto, speak to a financial advisor, and they will best advise how to invest so that you mitigate a lot of risk. But it is something that is very important to start teaching to children at a very young age, because they're young enough to take on more risk as opposed to when they're adults and they have a lot of responsibilities.
All right, fantastic. This has been a great conversation. Thank you for giving us your time. Tell us a little bit, where can we get hold of you if we can, maybe getting a little bit more advice on this?
Sure. So for us at Just Money, you can find us at www.justmoney.co.za. So Just Money basically is a platform that offers personalized insights, numerous articles, and just a range of financial solutions and tools to help you pave your way through this financial world.
Hey, man, you made it so practical. Thank you so much, Ramukebe.
Thank you very much, and all the best to your listeners.
Well, that's Ramukebe Tamache, who is a Just Money spokesperson, speaking to us about the importance of making sure that we get young people in when it comes to money and letting them actually navigate their way around this. So what's your take on that one? Would you ever introduce your young one to money? At what age would you prefer? Remember that WhatsApp number is +2763 406 9126. It's 11:30 Central African time. Let's wrap up the morning sports.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Benjamin. We begin with football news. Liberia's under-20 national football team coach, Kupasana, has named his final squad for the 2025 WAFU A and B under-20 championship, set to kick off on the 15th of June in Ghana, ending weeks of criticism and uncertainty over his selection process. Sana, who initially unveiled a 32-man provisional roster, faced sharp backlash from the public and football analysts for including a large number of under-15s and under-17 players in a tournament designated for the under-20 athletes. The controversial move prompted widespread concern over the team's readiness and competitiveness. Sana says, despite the controversy, Liberia's technical staff and players are focused on making a strong impression in the regional tournament, hoping to defy the odds and progress beyond the group stage. More football news. Bafana coach Hugo Broos says a win against Mozambique will be important for team's ranking. Bafana will face Mozambique in the second international friendly encounter at Peter Mokaba Stadium in South Africa's Limpopo province tonight. They played to a goalless draw in the first friendly clash against Tanzania last Friday at the same venue. Bros says he will field a totally different team against Mozambique.
Already it will be a total different team comparing with the team of last Friday. After those two games, we can make a good evaluation of certainly of the young boys, players who were for the first time with us. I want to win against Mozambique, and we have to take in account also a little bit our ranking. We will try everything to win the game, and let's hope we can succeed.
Orlando Pirates defender Nkosinathi Sibisi will captain Bafana Bafana against Mozambique. He says they want to win the game to boost their confidence.
For me, it's a privilege and an honor, to be able to lead the team. And I'd like to thank the coach, for showing the confidence in me. We've been together from the very first camp he came, because there were sometimes question marks, whenever I was here. The results, they always matter, as players we always play to win games, and it's really boosted our confidence. We've been on a winning streak for quite some time now. We know if we win, the country is more happier, it's a more safer place for everyone.
And in basketball news, Egypt's Al Ittihad and Libya's Al Ahly Tripoli are the first two teams to secure the ticket to the semi-finals of the playoffs of Basketball Africa League BAL 2025. Al Ahly had to beat Cape Verde's Creole Star to advance to the semi-finals, while Al Ittihad overcame Morocco's FUS Rabat in Pretoria, South Africa, where the playoffs action is unfolding. The BAL quarterfinals continue tomorrow as APR of Rwanda takes on Rivers Hoopers of Nigeria before US Monastir of Tunisia faces Pedro de Luanda for Angola. The BAL, a partnership between the International Basketball Federation FIBA and the NBA, is a professional league featuring 12 club teams from across Africa that completed its fourth season in June 2024. Times Square is no stranger to playing host of this highly regarded event, which kicked off the 2024 season last year. Let's end with the double Olympic champion Beatrice Chebet is now salivating for the 5,000-meter world record after a scintillating victory at the Rome Diamond League. Chebet will take part in the sixth leg of the prestigious competition set for the 12th of June in Oslo, Norway. She believes it is only a matter of time before she runs a sub-14. The 25-year-old continued her dominant showing in 2025, clocking an eye-catching 40 minutes, 03.69 seconds to win the women's 5,000 meter 3 seconds slower than the current world record by Ethiopian Gudav Tsegai. Meanwhile, Ethiopia's Hailu Freweyin took second place in a personal best of 14 minutes, 19.933 seconds, as Italian Nadia Batocletti clocked a national record of 14 minutes, 23.15 seconds to claim the final podium place. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lengwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa. It's time to plug into the heartbeat of the continent. Tune in to Channel Africa, your go-to radio station that broadcasts in 5 different languages.
L'Afrique du Sud célèbre la journée nationale du
Kabla hujaitwa kwa jina la Double K
or more of our forests have been destroyed.
Tamo kutuli branchi ndi
Partido Africano da Independência da Guiné.
Channel Africa represents every corner of this amazing land. From Lagos to Cape Town, Nairobi to Dakar, we've got you covered with the freshest news, music, and cultures. So, turn up the volume, feel the rhythm. And join the conversation. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
All right, it's 36 minutes past 11 o'clock Central African time. Let's find out what's happening in business as we wrap up things from a morning perspective. And we've got Tabiso Lehoko standing by.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Benjamin, and good morning. South Africa's biggest trade union, COSATU, has welcomed the Cabinet's approval of the National Labour Migration Policy. Last month, the Minister in the Presidency, Khumbudzo Ntshabeni, said that the policy seeks to provide a framework to enforce a proper and orderly movement and employment of foreign nationals in the country. The policy introduces quotas on the overall number of foreign nationals valid with the work permits that can be employed in major economic sectors such as agriculture, hospitality, tourism and construction. The Employment Services Amendment Bill will allow government to regulate the employment of immigrants in South African businesses. COSATU General Secretary Solly Petwe.
We hope this policies or legislation would be able to resolve the problem that we are facing in this country of employing people from outside other countries and with no document, on the basis that employers who are doing those things, they are trying to practice what is called running away from respecting the legislation that we have in this country.
South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has arrived at the first site where he will engage with the beneficiaries of the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention and the Presidential Employment Stimulus flagship programs. The visit will highlight innovative implementation models and public-private partnerships that are delivering dignified, high-quality employment and skilling outcomes for youth at scale. The President has set foot at the Sefako Makgato Primary School in Salisville. He will then head to the South African Creative Industries Incubator in Easterist and the Foundation for Professional Development in Pretoria East. Michael Mbewe reports.
The President will during the visits interact directly with youth beneficiaries, educators and implementing partners and see firsthand how the PES and PYEI's community-based demand-led approach is reshaping labour market access for the country's most excluded youth, designed to address the dual challenges of the youth unemployment and support for the basic education system by placing young people in roles within public schools as education and general school assistant.
South African telecommunication company Telkom has reported a 62.3% rise in full-year earnings and resumed dividends after a 4-year suspension, declaring also a special dividend of 98 South African cents per share. In 2020, the operator of South Africa's biggest fixed-line network announced the suspension of dividends for the next 3 financial years, starting in 2021. However, after reaching the initial target, the under-pressure operator delayed resuming dividend payments as it faced challenging market conditions. Nigeria's 2-year-old cost of living crisis, which has seen the price of grocery staples like rice rise over 100% since 2023, has reached a relatively affluent class of dog owners who are struggling to feed their pets because of soaring food costs. Keeping animals as pets is a recent trend in Nigerian society, where traditionally people were more likely to live with a chicken or goats reared for food. Over the past 2 decades, there was a rise in the number of households in urban areas keeping pet dogs, often for security in a country plagued by violent crime, but also for companionship. Eurozone government bond yields have been little changed, continuing the previous day's stability as markets eyed a second day of trade talks between the United States and China. Traders will also focus on a host of European Central Bank officials speaking this week after the central bank cut interest rates last week by 25 basis points to 2%. As expected, but signalled it may be closer to the end of its easing cycle than many had expected. Germany's 10-year yield, the benchmark for the Eurozone, was down 3 basis points at 2.542%. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 559. Botswana 13 pula 23, Kenya 128 shilling 41, and Zambia 24 kwacha 76. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar will cost you 5 ruble 56, Russia 78 rubles 82, India 85 rupees 66 China, 71.18, and in South Africa $1 will cost you 17 rand 72. $1 is trading at 73 pence to the British pound and 87 to the euro. Gold is trading at $3,306, platinum $1,216 per ounce, Brent crude oil $67.33 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Tabiso Lehoko.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Este é o Caleidoscópio de Canal África, com Remo Samo e João Yabalá.
O surto da cólera em Angola tem causado grande preocupação, afetando já mais de metade das províncias do país. Simultaneamente, a Agência dos Estados Unidos para o Desenvolvimento Internacional, USAID, um dos maiores doadores mundiais de assistência humanitária, decidiu não priorizar os países com maior incidência de malária. Para discutirmos as causas do alastramento da cólera em Angola e os impactos dessa decisão da USAID, convidamos o Dr. Jeremias Agostinho, médico e mestre em saúde pública, para partilhar a sua visão sobre o tema.
A doença, nesse momento, representa o maior risco de saúde pública que nós temos. Nos últimos anos, a nossa preocupação esteve sempre centrada com os casos de malária, os casos de tuberculose e também de infecção por VIH-Sida. A forma como, em pouco menos de 2 meses, os casos de cólera vêm aumentando, acaba por representar, nessa altura, um dos maiores desafios que o país tem. É expectável que, nesta fase, o número de casos venha a aumentar.
De segunda a sexta-feira, das 20 às 21 horas locais, este é o Caleidoscópio do Canal África.
#On the move and connect with us. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine, 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda, as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tepu Kholikweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joël Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some Lucifer knowledge. Kalodiscopia, 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine, 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda, as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tepu Kholikweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tamengubene talks money. Africa in Business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6. We put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joel Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochi Tika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some Lucifer knowledge. Kalodiscopia. 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and be.
She was able to speak a little bit of French. She was brilliant in many languages. Also, there's talk that she was well versed in her Swahili. Beautiful one there, taking us to 47 minutes past 11 o'clock Central African time. What do you feel about that conversation? Thinking about, you raising your little one, and sometimes we want to keep money out of it because we don't want these kids knowing the reality of what we go through as parents, because we usually associate money with the stresses in our lives, and we don't know that actually if we were introduced to money a little bit earlier on, we wouldn't have this mystique around money or our certain own impressions of money at times that actually feel like we don't really understand what are the benefits of money.
And instead of like just telling children about how money works, show them how money works. Instead of telling them that, oh no, this month I can't buy you this or the other, show them how money works. I had a system when my son and I started just living together, and I was like, okay, children, like all children, think, okay, you have this like vast amount of money in your bank and you can get them absolutely anything and everything. So I started to be transparent with money. And by transparent, I'm not saying, hey, look, this is just how much money I have and we can just play around with it. Yeah. No, I'd sit with him every end of the month and show you, okay, this is the bank account and this is how much money is in the bank account. Now I want us to write a list of the things that we need to buy. And groceries are the simplest things because we have to do it every month, right? So we write a grocery list and then we go there and we start, and the prices of all the things in the grocery list, and we go and I'd give him the list in the shop. We go do groceries together, and you get to tick the things off the list. So I get something and then you tick it off.
Yeah, that's
and
very practical.
And so you sort of see, okay, this is money going out and this is how it works. And then we come back and say, okay, now this is the money left. Now there's also rent that we need to pay. Let's put it over there. There's also this. Let's put that over there. And in my budget, always put things aside for fun, as a part of the budget.
Did he have his own budget?
No, he didn't have his own budget. Not back then. Yeah. But even then, I'd say, this is how much money I'm going to put towards some of your fun. Okay. And I'd say, this is some of my fun too. Okay. So this is mommy's fun, your fun. It's also part of the budget. But the fact that you can actively see the money coming out one by one and the things it's used for and the things that you are actively also consuming within the budget, then you have a better understanding. And then I remember the first time, because when we go do maybe a seasonal clothing shopping, and the first time he also got a really hard lesson. We went to go do the clothing shopping. Usually the kids will point, I like this sweater, and then you buy the thing. No, this time I had a budget and I said, okay, the budget would be maybe 2,500 rand. But we went to the ATM first and I took out physical 2,500 rand in cash, and I say, here is your 2,500 rand. You're going to buy your own clothes today. At first it looks like a load of money, plus it's in cash, and yay, it's 100 rands, and then it looks so amazing. And then you start buying things, the things that you actually like, and then you realize, no. And he cried that day, the first time he cried. He's like, I don't have any money left. I'm like, well, that's how money works.
Yeah, you bought those expensive shoes, bro.
Yeah, I mean, you could have tried another one. Maybe next season you'll make better financial decisions.
Sure.
Well, let us know, how are you trying to make sure that your children, and maybe not just your children, if you're an aunt and uncle or a guardian to children around you, you can also participate and be an active part in making sure that children learn about finances. It's 11:51 Central Africa time. You're still tuned in to On the Move, and the conversations continue after this.
Africa at Play with NATO and ETO chairman.
The Confederation of African Athletics, CAA President Mr. Hamad Kalkaba Malboum, talk to us about the state of athletics in Africa as it stands, and what picture are you looking at 5 years later?
Yeah, athletics in Africa is strong. We are able to organize our major events in time. Like this year, we will have the under 20 and under 18 African Championship in Nigeria. Next year, we will have the senior in Ghana. In 2027, we will go back to Algeria to organize the under 18 and under 20. And then 2028, we will have the senior championship in Gaborone in Botswana. Well, by this program, we can increase our performance. And at the same time, we are considering the fact that within the Police Federation, they are identifying young talent every year within their national program, within the scholarship championship. And so the athletics in Africa is in good standard.
Live every Saturday and Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. Central African Time. Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move. On Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tepuho Likweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joël Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochi Tika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia. 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tepuho Likweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more with Joël.
TTW Wahala is the name of this one. There's no Wahala here, just a good time and good conversations on Channel Africa. Lulu Gabu is here to let us know what's coming up on today's Africa Update. Good morning, Lulu.
Good morning, and how are you today?
Doing good.
We're not going to talk about the cold today.
No, because now it's cold like almost every day.
Yeah, no, it is. All right, so coming up today on Africa Update, we're going to be looking at stories of violence and hunger and collapsing healthcare in South Darfur, that's in Sudan. We'll be unpacking that story and just finding out exactly what contingency measures are in place. And it's always the organizations that need assistance, the UN, HCR, that need aid to ensure that people are fed. And, collapsing healthcare is definitely a big one, because where do people get assistance when it comes to their healthcare and to their well-being? And then also there we're going to be focusing on a protest that was staged outside a mortuary in Kenya's capital, Nairobi. This is following the death of a man in police custody. That's Albert Ojwang. We spoke to the UN, UN or Amnesty International? Rather, Amnesty International Iran Houghton yesterday. And we focused on just the arrest itself, how it came to him passing away in a police cell where he was alone. It's alleged that he was banging his head on the wall. So there's something is amiss there, and they want investigations to be held, and this is just the continued protest with regards to that. Ojwang's family and Amnesty International have obviously disputed the way that he is said to have died. So we'll unpack that with our correspondent in Kenya, that's Alex Kiyani. And then also in South Africa, we are going to be joined by Zanele Khanya, who is a candidate attorney at the Socioeconomic Rights Institute of South Africa, that's SERI, with regards to the South Gauteng High Court in the country hearing a major case challenging xenophobic violence in the country. We know that we have experienced a lot of that in the past years, and we'll unpack that and what this case and this hearing is going to unfold, and what they're hoping will come out of it in terms of what is at stake. So a lot more, all these and a lot more coming up on Africa Update today.
Thank you, Lulu. Stay with us right here on Channel Africa. You continue to get that African perspective and, of course, important information from the continent and the world over. That's it from us, the On The Move team. We'll be back tomorrow. Have a great day, Africa.
We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge.